Hi, my name is Lydia Stanotic, and as a fashion designer, I started to be curious in wearable technology some times ago, and in particular in the possibilities that this kind of concept can offer. Going through my research, I found a long list of designers, studios, and labs that use innovative technologies to produce their garments. I was amazed to discover a sort of parallel world in fashion industry, especially when just a few years ago it was far from our imagination that one day we could be able to design and produce clothing completely by a printer. I studied fashion in Italy, where unfortunately wearable design is still unknown. I speak about fashion schools, of course, and as everybody knows, Italian fashion industry is based on traditions and high quality standard. And because of that, it's hard that a new concept as a wearable technology can find a space. Being my knowledge and skills based on the Italian fashion system, starting my research, I found quite hard to get into wearable design by myself. Until I meet the guys from Frosinone from Fab Lab, who offer me the chance to work on some interesting projects of wearable technology. My presentation today speaks about the passage from haute couture to wearable design, and I'm going to introduce you famous names of the fashion world with their inventions that made a big change in the fashion industry. I will speak about notorious names of the past and the future of the fashion. Of course, there is no enough space and time to nominate them all, so I choose a few of them with some social changes that have marked the history of fashion forever. So let's start. Fashion feats only style remain the same. Gabrielle Coco Chanel was born in 1883 and died in 1971. She created a new look for women in 12th century, creating clothes that were primarily comfortable. A Chanel suit, for example, from 23 or handbag is still seen as a landmark in fashion industry. Her popularity thrived in 20s because of innovative design. Chanel's initial triumph was the innovative use of jersey fabric. It's a kind of machine knit material and traditionally relegated to the manufacturers of undergarments. During the 20s, Coco Chanel became the first designer to create loose women's jerseys, traditionally used for men's underwear, creating a relaxed style for women, ignoring the stiff corset look of the time. They soon became very popular with the clients, and post-war generation of women loved them. In 25, Chanel launched her signature cardigan jacket, and the following year matched its success with her little black dress. Both items continue to be a staple part of every Chanel collection. After World War II, she did some self-imposed exile in Switzerland, and she back in Paris in 1954, where she found Dior's new look. She expanded the signature style with the introduction of pea-jacket and bell-bottoms for women. Her new collection was a hit in whole world. The biggest change in fashion due to the war was the result of clothing shortages. Fewer colors were available, as the chemicals usually used for dyeing were instead being used for explosives. Therefore, colors on clothing were lighter to save on dyes. The government confiscated all stock of natural fibers. Other materials like nylon, silk, or elastic were hard to find. And as the government confiscated the stocks for the war effort, silk, for example, was used to make parachutes, and wool and leather were used in the manufacturing of uniforms and shoes. Even metals for bottoms were scarce. President Roosevelt established the War Production Board in 1942. On March 8, a new law known as L-85 came into effect. This law regulated every aspect of clothing and limited the use of many materials. Many companies also had to convert their factories to wartime production needs. As the shortages were not only in the US, in UK in 41, the government introduced utility clothing. The British government took control of what fabrics would be provided to clothing producers. Utility garments like military uniforms were very simple, like you can see. To conserve fabric, utility clothing had a small pockets and man pants had no cuff. Skirts, shirts and dresses were shorter. Garments had no more than 3 bottoms. Shoes one, plenty and study. The United States emerged from World War II the most powerful country in the world. In fact, the war had reinforced the United States' ability to produce the goods, and the United States found the ruined economy of Europe and the rest of the world like a market hungry of US products. United States create a plan to help the economy of Europe called the Marshall Plan. The United States help Europe recover, and in return Europe continues to become the bigger consumers of or user of US goods. Helping other helped the United States, and its economy boomed in 50s. Advertisement on television and radio and in magazines continually Advertisements on television and radio urged Americans to buy more and more goods. The result was the creation of what historians now call a consumer society. One of the biggest industries to benefit from the end of the war and the rise of consumerism was the fashion industry. People had grown tired of the clothing restriction and soon returned to wearing luxury and expensive clothing. Clothing manufacturers who had produced millions of military uniforms in World War II had figured out how to mass-produce clothing, and in the years after the war they began to market well-made and even stylish clothing to common people. Stylish clothing once had been only for the rich, but after the World War, the members of the ever-growing middle class could afford good clothes. After that, we have Christian Dior. Everybody know who was Christian Dior, but I'm sure that everybody doesn't know that he was also great businessman. Marcel Boussac, the king of cotton, met Dior and listened to his theory that the public was ready for a new style after the war. Dior's description of luxury new look with a different silhouette and billowing skirt had an obvious appeal to a man who owed his wealth to selling large quantity of fabrics. So he agreed to launch the new couture house for Christian Dior. The first Christian Dior couture show was 12 February 47. Christian Dior showed a collection of luxury clothing with soft shoulders, waspy waists, and full-flowing skirts, intended for what he called flower woman. The new look was absolutely appropriate for the post-war era. The nylon revolution. In the 30s, what was invented revolutionary synthetic fiber, known rather as polymer 6.6, declared as strong as steel, as fine as spider web. DuPont, this miraculous, wrinkly-free, inexpensive fiber, created something of a frenzy when it premiered at New York World Fair in 1939. It was acquired the more username of nylon. Nylon stocking hit the streets of America 15 May 40, and millions of women rushed out to buy them. 4 million pairs were sold in US in the first year alone. Nearly 2 years later, nylon stocking suddenly disappeared and the US entered World War II. When the war ended in 1945, demand for nylon stocking soared once again. During the war, it was possible to find them only on black market with very high prices. In 1959, the industry entered a new era with DuPont inventing strong, ultra-stretchy lycra. New women had the beautiful fitting, comfortable stocking they wanted. Manufacturers moved away from flag knitting to circle or tube knitting. The mid-60s witnesses another revolution, miniskirt of Mary Quant. It was difficult to avoid a glimpse of stocking tops under such a short skirt, so tights or pantyhose as they were known were the practical solution. With their attractive patterns and the colors, nylon stocking practically disappeared. After the war, we have Paco Rabanne, who was born in Spain, but his family moved to France during the Second World War. Rabanne studied architecture in Paris from 51 to 63, and in 63 he won an award at the Biennale de Paris for his garden sculpture. After that, he decided to put his artistic gift and the skills of his family to good use. Together, they hand-produced unusual bottoms for the houses of Haute Couture. His clients in that moment were Nina Ricci, Balenciaga, Pierre Cardin, and Givenchy. Following the example of contemporary artists who had given up the traditional media of paint, Paco Rabanne chose the base of his fashion experiments on a systematic challenge to the art of cutting and sewing. His work was characterized from the beginning by a complete rejection of traditional couture techniques in favor of the exploration of unusual materials and methods of assemblage. Rabanne followed up his experiments in rhodoid with garments made of metal, making metal something of a distinctive signature. He used it from one collection to the next in all his forms. This work led Coco Chanel to call him the metal worker. He experimented with other materials were previously unknown to fashion, and it was with paper, knit-fur, wood, coconut, and laser discs. After him, we have Pierre Cardin. Pierre Cardin is an Italian-born French high fashion designer, best known for his geometric avant-garde design. Cardin worked with Dior on New Look, so he was once a part of a team that helped design a style that loved woman lies. Cardin is now best known for creating clothes that have the exact opposite effect. In the 60s, he used of stark tunics, goggles, and helped launch the space age look. In the 60s were a weird and successful period for Pierre Cardin. In the first year of decade, he began to design clothes inspired by science. He visited Japan in 1957, becoming one of the first Western designers to seek out Eastern influence. In Japan, he discovered out business opportunities while studying the country's fashion for new ideas. It's interesting that just as Japanese fashion had inspired Cardin years before, some Japanese designers are still heavily influenced by the futuristic style that Cardin pioneered. After him, we have Japan in the Europe. As Japanese began to consume Western fashion, Japanese design were becoming prominent in the West, especially in Paris. They are said to have created the Japanese fashion phenomenon and influenced many Western designers. So Kenzo came in Paris in 70, Miyake in 73, Rei Kawakubo of Comme des Garçons and Yamamoto in 81. The Japanese designers were the key players in the redefinition of clothing and fashion, like you can see is Miyake's clothes. And some even destroyed the Western definition of clothing system. They were labeled as creative and innovative and were given the status and privilege that until then only Western designers have acquired. Japanese designers have continued to mobilize in Paris permanently or temporarily to take part during the Paris collections. Here you can see Rei Kawakubo and Yamamoto's designs from Night. In 2000, we have fast fashion. Fast fashion is a contemporary term used by fashion retailers to express that Designs move from catwalk quickly in order to capture current fashion trends. Fast fashion clothing collections are based on the most recent fashion trends presented at Fashion Week in both the spring and the autumn of every year. These trends are designed and manufactured quickly and cheaply to allow the mainstream consumers to buy current clothing styles at low price. This philosophy of quick manufacturing at an affordable price is used in large retail such as H&M, Zara, Gap, and so on and so on. We have quick response. Quick response developed in US in 80s. Quick response was developed to improve manufacturing process in the textile industry with the aim of removing time from the production system. Quick response is now used to support fast fashion, creating new fresh products. And what is about the nature? In every step in the production of clothing, there is a harm caused to the environment in aquatic, terrestrial, and atmospheric ecosystem. This harm is in the form of the release of toxic or greenhouse gases into the atmosphere or pollution and destruction of aquatic habitats. The majority of the atmospheric pollution from fabric production is based on the need for constant transportation all over the globe. After we have the problem with dyeing and consuming the water, with exploitation and cheap labor, and there is a long list of all aftermaths, and this continue into the future unless an enormous change is made in the minds and attitudes of consumers. From America, we have Patagonia. Patagonia is an outdoor clothing company famously tells customers to think twice before buying. On Black Friday 2011, the brand had an anti-Black Friday event, and they said to customers to get their items repaired instead. Patagonia also famously ran with this advertising, "Don't buy this jacket." We designed and sell things made to last and be useful, but we ask our customers not to buy from us what you don't need or can't really use. Everything we make, everything anyone's make, costs the planet more than it gives back. The company said it in 2012. This philosophy is great for brand image. But they work with some interesting things like Blue Sign. It's technology based in Switzerland, works at each step in the textile supply chain to approve chemicals, processes, materials, and products that are safe for the environment, safe the work for workers, and safe for the customers at the end. They are using Ulex, that is natural neoprene. Hemp is natural fiber that's cultivated with a low impact on the environment. Recycled wool, nylon, polyester, and cotton. They make organic cotton, reclaimed wool and cotton. And it's really interesting that they are dyeing fabrics with a wet process. And the top of the thing that they collaborate with, they have collaboration with one young designer named Natalie Chanin, and she redesigned damaged pieces of their garments. Couture. From London, we have Couture, and Lady Susan Lee is London-based fashion designer working on fashion and future technologies. She is a senior research fellow at Central St. Martin College of Art and Design and the director of the Couture research project. I took this photo from her website, and it explains about what is a couture. Lee's latest garment, which used this growing textile, is the couture jacket, like you can see here, made from cellulose. Instead of plant-based fibers, it is produced by millions of tiny bacteria growing in bath of sweet green tea. It's really interesting and amazing. Like you can see, Susan Lee designed this jacket and shoes and also this skirt from bacteria growing in the bath because it looks so similar to leather. Its unusual production method might be overlooked by many on first glance. There is a long list of fabrics and fibers of the future, but I choose some of them and that I thought that they are interesting. And first of them is Luminex, and it's an innovative system of fabric containing optical fiber, able to emit light. Light is given with LEDs, which are part of the fabric. And it's also possible to carry out silk screen prints without hating on the fabric. Gelina fibers are an exciting new idea in the world of textile fibers that can transform any fabric into something special. They're light reflective and it has a super soft handle, much like as a cashmere. But its special production techniques mean that even just a little added to the fiber mix will result in a sparking effect. After that, from Scholler, we have three of fabrics that I choose. And the first one is cold black. Cold black reduces the absorption of sunlight and therefore had build up. After that, we have Nanosphere, keeps textiles dry and clean. And for the end, Chi Change, and it's inspired by nature. It's a new membrane technology. It's based on an example from the nature. As a matter of fact, it copies the effect that a fir cone open and close in response to different weather conditions. Studio XO. People say that there are two types of people interested in this technology. People who are into health and fitness and people who wanted to increase their productivity. And we believe that misses out a whole other category that is more about expression and emotion. Studio XO is founded by Nancy and Benjamin, and she is a fashion designer, studied fashion and at RCA before moving to the research lab of Dutch technology gigant Philips. And he is a mechanical engineer, and he studied engineer of Imperial College with a special interest in nuclear reactor design. But the XO story really began in 2011. The two meet while teaching at two London's top university, and Benjamin asked Nancy to make some collaboration. Their studio is in North London, and there is a 3D printers and soldering irons, but also scissors, cut-out paper patterns, and rolls of fabric. And the pair have around 10 staff, and they describe them like hybrids. Designers as well as coders and engineers who, like them, want to cold fuse fashion design and technology. Nancy explained one time, yes, music artists are key to what we do here. Other companies maybe have couture lines where they showcase their abstracted pieces. We're finding that these really innovative music artists are adopting us and our technologies to create these big effect and monumental moments for their fans. So they made for Lady Gaga flying dress in 2030 and bubble blowing dress in April of 2014. The idea of the digital skin is so unexplored, and that is what we want to do, say Nancy. Next up on Studio XO's development timeline are clothes that can change size and shape at the touch of the button, and the application of micro robots to textile. From America, we have a nervous system. Nervous system is generative design studio that works at the intersection of science, art, and technology. They're employing computer simulation to generate design and digital fabrication to realize production. Their main inspiration is the nature, and they write computer programs based on process and patterns found in nature and use those programs to create unique and affordable art, jewelry, and housewares. Nervous System was founded in 2007 by Jessica Rosenkranz and Jesse Louis Rosenberg. Jessica currently acts as creative director and he's like a chief science officer. Together they led a team of 4 and their studio is located in Somerville, Massachusetts. They have a lot of projects, but I choose kinematics. And because I found it really interesting, kinematics is a system for 4D printing that creates complex, foldable forms composed of articulated models. The system provides a way to turn any three-dimensional shape into a flexible structure using 3D printing. Practically, kinematics allows us to take large objects and compress them down for 3D printing through simulation. Kinematics produce design composed of 10 to 1,000 of unique components that interlock to construct dynamic mechanical structures. Each component is rigid, but in aggregate they behave as a continuous fabric, though made of many distinctive pieces. These designs required no assembly. And from London we have Gareth Pugh. He was born in Sunderland. He studies on the Art Foundation course at the City of Sunderland College and complete his degree in fashion design at Central Martin in 2003. Pugh's designs, such as his famous in-flat balloons garments, are inspired by shape, proportion, and the process. He has show at London Fashion Week as part of Fashion East and was awarded New Generation sponsorship to show in autumn-winter 2006. In spring-summer 2009, he made this collection that you can see really unusual, and he used a laser cut for first time. Collection is inspired with Britain, and he showed it in February 2015 in London. He's using a lot of traditional technique in making his collections, but this one, simple, I like very much. Patchworking on needlepoint, it can actually be used to create architectural structure or add new dimension to flat fabrics. Iris van Herpen is a Dutch fashion designer. She studied fashion design in Amsterdam. Van Herpen immediately caught the eye with notable shows. In 2007, she started her own label. Since July 2011, she is a guest member of the prestigious Parisian Chambre syndicale de la Haute Couture, which is a part of the Fédération Française de la Couture. She participates in many international exhibitions and creates 2 collections for the year. Van Herpen is one of the first fashion designers to experiment with 3D printing. In an interview, she said that everybody could have their own body scanned and just order clothes that fit perfectly. It's amazing if we thinking like that. She collaborated with a lot of artists. One of them is a Dutch artist, Jolan van der Wiel, who designed magnetic dress, and Canadian architect Philip Basley. and a 3D-printed transparent dress covered in crystal forms was created in collaboration with architect Niccolò Casas, like you can see in this photo. She collaborated with a shoe designer, Rem de Colahas, to create 3D printed shoes that looks like three roots. In 2030, she used a lot of techniques, including injection modeling and laser cutting, to create intricate three-dimensional structures for dresses, jackets, trousers, skirts, and blouses, like you can see in the slide. In all my work, I'll try to make clear that fashion is an artistic expression, showing and wearing art, and not just a functional and devoid of content or commercial tools. From follows function is not a slogan which I concur. Next designer is one young lady, Leon Susan Tentfo Van Orden. I hope that I told her name exactly. She said one time, as designers, we have to give people the opportunity to express their individual personalities through our designs. 3D printing and laser cutting allow people to create something that's uniquely theirs. My designs are dynamic, combining traditional values and modern technology such as 3D body scanning and generative algorithms. Van Orden presented a range of leather dresses from her This Fits Me collection at Dutch Design Week 2040. I need to say that this is not one of the best dresses that I ever seen, but the idea is really nice that she have to create it. One author create a very basic dress design, which can easily scale to exact proportion of the customer. She said the customer gets a body scan, so you get a 3D model of the body in the computer. I scale the dress accordingly and then project a generative line patterns on top of that digital dress. The generative patterns enable customers to customize the dress around the curves of their body within the rules set by Van Orden. She then used this design to create the pattern pieces for the dress, which are laser cutted out and of leather and stitched together. And for the end, we have Lee Buckley, and she is a designer, engineer, artist, and educator whose work explores intersections and juxtapositions of high and low technologies, new and masculine and feminine making traditions. She also developed tools that help people build their own technologies. Her invention, including the LilyPad Arduino toolkit. From 2009 to 2030, she was a professor at a Media Lab where she founded and directed the High-Low Teach Group. Her work has been exhibited internationally in venues including the Victoria and Albert Museum. LilyPad, like I said, is designed by her and is a set of savable electronic pieces designed to help you build soft, interactive textile. A set of savable electronic models, including a small programmable computer called a LilyPad Arduino, can be stitched together with conductive thread to create interactive garments and accessories. LilyPad can sense information about the environment using inputs like lights and temperature sensors and can act on the environment with outputs like LED lights, vibrator motors, and speakers. With LilyPad, I finished my presentation from Haute Couture to wearable technology. I hope that it was interesting for you. So think about it, and bye bye.